I have you covered with Locked On Ole Miss, but my situation is very fluid right now. I will explain.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, the most watched Ole Miss podcast around. I am your host, Steven Willis, a 10-year veteran member of the national media and former Ole Miss staff member. Today's show is a little bit different. We reflect on how Locked On Ole Miss started back during my first surgery in 2019. I want to take a moment to sincerely thank all the insiders and everydayers who have made this show what it is today. This is my final show before the surgery, and the return timeline is unclear. It will depend on how well I respond and recover. The first time I underwent this procedure, it was described to me as a transplant-level surgery, and it took me 4 months to get back to any sense of normalcy. This time, it should be easier, but not knowing exactly when I'll return is completely nerve-wracking. I've set some ambitious goals, and I'll be back as soon as I possibly can, but I'm mentally preparing for a tough road ahead, and I'm confident that with the hardcores at Locked On Ole Miss, we'll build all of this back together. Most importantly, thank you to everyone who's been on this journey with me. It's mean a ton. You've made this show more than I ever imagined it could be, and I'm incredibly grateful. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube. Thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your first listen every day, and a special hello to the insiders and everydayers who make this show what it is. And don't forget to find a second listen on the network. Chris Gordy at Locked On SEC or Corey Burton at Locked On Vandy offer more perspectives on college football, the SEC, and yes, even Ole Miss. So we are about 5 days away from my surgery, and we can do a little inside baseball today. I've told everybody that I was willing to do that as it's gotten further, so it's no time like the present. I have a golf ball sized brain tumor in my head. This will be the third time that we've had a procedure on it and the fourth brain surgery that I've had as a result of it. So this is kind of an old hat type thing for me. It also explains how I react and how single focused I am and how I look at every situation as an opportunity to make it absolutely better. And I'm willing to do things that other people might not be willing to do because of the urgency that this surgery is put on. Every time you have a procedure, you have about a 3% more chance of it going wrong. When I had the first one, it was about 97% I was going to make a full recovery, so I could do all this and it would be fine. The second time, 94%. It's down to about 90% now. So I have a 90% probability of absolutely being fine. Now, mortality isn't an issue when it comes to this surgery. The only time they generally lose somebody is whenever the reaction to the anesthesia. I've had the surgery, been under 3 times. So I don't necessarily have to worry about that. The problem that I have to worry about, and what Locked On Ole Miss fans need to worry about, is the tumor is located on my facial nerve. And because of that, after the surgery, if it reacts, facial paralysis and looking like I have Bell's palsy is a possibility. Obviously bad for when you do a video-based podcast. Or it could go the other way and I could end up looking like the Joker. Might be temporary, might be permanent, but there's no timetable either way if that goes on. That is about a 10% chance of that happening in this operation. And if it happens, you might have a situation to where I come on and I'm doing the podcast and there's just a picture of me or something over the top. That means that some sort of a facial nerve issue has happened. Now, the other side is the Novocaine nerve that it sits on. You know that nerve that they deaden when you go to the dentist office? The tumor's on that one as well. So I have numbness that travels all around my face and my taste buds are completely jacked up. It's been a very, very difficult 5 years, and I hope I was able to pull this off in a relatively fun way. But that is what was going on. During my first surgery, I had about a 4-month recovery where I was completely holed up and couldn't do anything. During that time, I step by step building out what would become Locked On Ole Miss. how it needed to be handled, where I needed to be living, how it needs to be done during the program, how I need to go after people that honestly were tired of the way that it was covered in 2014 and 2015. Ole Miss was winning 9-10 games in 2014, 2015. It wasn't fun because of the way it was covered. It was always covered in a if it bleeds, it leads type personality, the typical journalism thing. And I was like, that's not fun. We need to do something different. So I got out it, and I don't do the news breaking thing. I don't try to break news. I don't do any reporting whatsoever. I am opinion based. I am the guy sitting next to you at the sports bar talking about different topics. A debate fires up and people can join in. That is what this channel is. And our goal was to make sure that following Ole Miss sports was fun. And I think we've done that. Listen, Locked On Ole Miss is the number one thing that pops up on SEO whenever you search for an Ole Miss podcast, Ole Miss Rebel podcast. It's all over. Sometimes 7, 8 different SEO locations. The benefit for that is everybody that is being recruited by Ole Miss, whenever they go to research Ole Miss, Locked On Ole Miss is the first thing they see. I am literally the front door of the university. You had stuff from coaches that have sold on it, but the behind the scenes stuff of them actually learning, so many people have used this show as a gateway to Ole Miss sports. And because of it, the narrative has changed. The way people talk outside about it changed. It's not so much a this is what you don't have type thing. That's the major story. No, this is all about what you do have and what could happen and what is a realistic expectation going on. Since we've been broadcasting, Ole Miss has gone to a Sugar Bowl, had 3 10-win seasons in 4 years, made a Sweet 16 in basketball, and has a national championship in baseball. That has made this show absolutely take off. It's the most watched Ole Miss podcast in the history of Ole Miss podcast. And that is all because of you. Thank you so much. We have built something wonderful together. Not so much a journalism thing. There's plenty of that crap going around. But as a following, a place to gather, a meeting spot, what used to be message boards 15 years ago, before all the trolls realized that you could do that, this is the avenue for fans to get together and talk about their favorite teams. And Locked On in 5 or 10 years is going to be the dominant avenue of sports coverage. It just is. What we do is what people want. We meet people where they live. And because of that, we're very hyper effective and we're always trying to get better. We don't rest on our laurels, and we are pretty good at this. So thank you to everybody that joined me on this journey in part 1 of the Locked On Ole Miss story. And when I come back, part 2 is going to be thought of. And part of that is an idea for a new show. A new show. And in that show, you'll see we'll have different personalities. I don't want to blow that too quickly, but we will see exactly how it goes. So when we come back, we are going to talk about what we expect in college athletics this season. While I'm out, what do we expect to actually happen in April, June, May, that time frame? We'll talk about that next. This is a message from our sponsor, Intuit TurboTax. Taxes was waiting and wondering and worrying if you were going to get any money back, and then waiting, wondering, and worrying some more. Now Taxes is matching with a TurboTax expert who can do your taxes as soon as today. An expert who gives your taxes their undivided attention as they work on your return, while you get real-time updates on their progress so you can focus on your day. An expert who will find you every deduction possible and file every form, every investment, everything with 100% accuracy. All so you can get the most money back guaranteed. No waiting, no wondering, no worries. Now this is Taxes. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with the TurboTax Live full service, real-time updates in the iOS mobile app. See guarantee details for turbotax.com/guarantees. We are back with the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and you get ready for the surgery and you want to talk about expectations, but the question is going to be, what did you miss? What did you miss being away? Like, the first thing will be Meet the Rebels tomorrow. I'm going to miss that, concentrating on everything. My mother's coming down to help with the recovery, and so I have to handle all that. But my Saturday, the next 5 days is absolutely, completely busy before I end up having a couple of months of really bad times. So we'll see how it goes. I'm tough enough to make it through this. I've made it through multiple of these, so I'm going to be fine. But the Locked On Ole Miss podcast could have a little bit of a delay. On Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays during the week for the next month, Brian Smith, the Florida football scout, Locked On's host of The Portal, will be guest hosting your podcast, giving you all the recruiting needs. The transfer portal is getting ready to open up, both football and basketball. And what better person to have than the host of the Portal podcast talking to you? He has a very high opinion of Lane Kiffin, especially Austin Simmons, and the talent in the state of Mississippi. It's pretty interesting. I can't wait to see that. On Thursdays, I have a series called Why I Hate, and it goes until May 29th of all SEC teams that Ole Miss plays. I've already uploaded them. They're already scheduled. Every Thursday, it'll be my ugly mug talking about the SEC football schedule, why I hate the school, what you can expect for the game. And a lot of times it's like, hey, this is Austin Simmons' checklist. What is it going to look like? So that's going to be every Thursday. Every Tuesday, supposedly, it could happen. Technology could get us. I've got one show in already. The Locked On Mizzou is on Tuesday. There's going to be hosts of other Locked On channels that do shows about Ole Miss on our skin and are going to release it on there. So you can get their perspectives of how they view Ole Miss. Talked to Brandon Olson, who's the host of Locked On Gators. He talked about, hey, can we do a preview of the game? It's like, absolutely. Do the show however you want. Now, it might not be a situation that I can get it uploaded because we're coming towards the end, but as it sits, that's just another option. So over the course of the next month and a half, we have it pretty pre-programmed. Now, if I go longer than that, it could be problematic. I can see the Florida football scout staying on. We would figure out a way to make that happen. That'd be a month after my surgery, basically. But we'll see how it goes. But you should be taken care of on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. It just won't be me. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Now, the question becomes, what am I going to miss? Whenever I'm out, whenever I'm down, what am I going to miss? What are my expectations for the next 3 months that I could potentially be out? What are those expectations? And I sit back and think from time to time, it's like, man, yeah, there's a lot that could happen. There's a very little bit that could happen. The main thing is, I think the house settlement is going to keep getting delayed and the can kicked down the road. I just don't see them having any sort of a chance to push this through to where everything happens, which means the transfer portal is going to have a lot of chaos in both the basketball and the football windows, and women's basketball as well, because this is a chance to get in, front load the contract before whatever they decide on that house settlement comes into effect, and you can get some higher you can still highly pay for kids. I think there's a power forward with Texas A&M or Texas Tech that got $4 million in NIL. So this year is going to be absolutely nuts. I know we always talk about how On3 or 247 talk about how this transfer portal cycle is going to be the craziest transfer portal cycle of all time. And it's like, yeah, that's kind of the new hurricane season of what's going on, really. But this year it could be a little bit different because that house settlement is right down the road. So we'll monitor that. We'll pay attention to that. And that's honestly why we got the Florida football scout to kind of take advantage of what's going on. I think that Ole Miss and Lane Kiffin, Coach Yo, Chris Beard in the transfer portal, every single one of them, they're about to do some work. They're about to really do some work. Some of the names you see popping for Chris Beard, when you look at what's going on with him, there's those 6'4", 6'5" guards, that height that he wants of that positionless basketball. I think he's going down that track, and he's going to land one of these two shooters, or one of these 2 or 3 shooters that are out there that's 6'4", 6'5", 6'6", and just kind of roll the dice. I'm thinking a scorer, a couple of shooters, and some rebounders and super athletes like Corey Chest. That's the plan for Chris Beard. And Lane Kiffin, we did a show with the Florida Football Scout that's going to air Sunday on the Portal Podcast with Brian Smith, talking about Xavier Hill. And we talked about him yesterday on the show as well. This is somebody that kind of changes the calculus a little bit for Ole Miss in the transfer portal, because this is a guy that played left guard, which Ole Miss doesn't have a left guard at the moment that I know of as far as a returning guy. And he's played right tackle, which him being an all-conference right tackle in Conference USA is well worth it. When you have a quarterback like Austin Simmons, it becomes a situation. This guy was made in a lab potentially to play on Ole Miss's offensive line. We'll see if it happens. Texas lost a lot of offensive linemen this past season. A lot of big money schools are going to pay a lot of money for one of these tackles, and Xavier Hill could be one of those. So will Ole Miss outbid whoever comes calling for Xavier Hill? That is something to monitor as well. And how many players do Ole Miss sign in this portal cycle? That's a unique question, because you assume that a couple of defensive backs are going to happen. Those guys are going to pop. Obviously, the offensive line's there. They're good at wide receiver. They're good at running back, and they're good at quarterback. Down on I think it's defensive back and offensive line. So I think potentially you could see 4 to 5 transfer portal signings in the spring. And generally, I'm not a huge fan of spring transfer portal window signings. So we'll see exactly how it goes. There should be some dudes more so than before whenever the winter happened because of the house settlement. This could be a cash grab for better or worse, but welcome to the mercenary era of college football. We'll see exactly how that goes as well. In baseball starts a massive series tonight, and we're going to talk about that just right after this break. Ole Miss takes on Tennessee in a 3-game baseball series tonight, and Ole Miss is 6th in the country. They beat Alcorn State 29-1. Good for Alcorn to get a run, but that game should have been called in about the 3rd inning. There should have been Little League rules on that game. And they beat Memphis 10-0. So a very good week is shaping up potentially for Ole Miss if they can take 2 out of 3 from Tennessee. And the reason I say take 2 out of 3 and pay attention to that is if Ole Miss takes 2 out of 3 from Tennessee in this fall or in this spring, they're in the national seed discussion as the number 6 ranked team in the country with a run rule win over the number 3 team in the country. And they were basically a choke in the 9th inning away from taking a series away from Arkansas. And we see kind of how good Arkansas is right now. Ole Miss doesn't play LSU, and they do not play Texas during the season. Ole Miss has a chance with the Tennessee game. The schedule should line up pretty well after this. And Ole Miss should win 16, 17, 18 games if Ole Miss takes 2 or 3 from Tennessee. Now, the last time Ole Miss played Tennessee in baseball was in 2022, and it was a sweep, and it was a bad sweep by Tennessee. Now, that was the year that Ole Miss won the national title, but Tennessee that year just kind of beat Ole Miss down. Will that happen again? Because after that Tennessee series, if everybody remembers exactly what happened, after that Tennessee series, Ole Miss was kind of broken for about a month. Tennessee kind of broke Ole Miss, and they had to get right before they went on their hot run to get into the NCAA tournament and make the run in the tournament. But after the Tennessee and the immediate aftermath, it was not good. Ole Miss desperately needs to avoid that. But Ole Miss needs to at least find a way to get 1 and hopefully find a way to get 2, because if they get 2, they are firmly in the national seed conversation moving forward. It's nuts to think about, because when we talked about the baseball team earlier this winter, before the season started, whenever Ole Miss was predicted 15th out of 16 teams, just ahead of Missouri, which I'm glad they didn't put Missouri ahead of Ole Miss because we see that now. But they didn't have much respect for Ole Miss. Ole Miss was absolutely disrespected in this offseason. They were better than everybody thought. But the last 2 years, Ole Miss has not been good. Very anti-Mike Bianco-like. Ole Miss just hasn't been very good. But they've put it together with a strong lineup to where they can hit the heck out of the ball this year. They have built a roster that just works. Mitchell Sanford, all of those guys, up and down the lineup is doing that. Finding Luke Chang to play shortstop whenever they realized that Owen Pano was not quite ready for this. Chang's been a warrior for this baseball team. And has been one of the MVPs of them. The return of Hunter Elliott to allow Riley Maddox and Mason Nichols to have other weekend spots so you don't have to use one of those guys who aren't a Friday starter on a Friday, because that Friday game is critical. And having Hunter Elliott is a big deal for Ole Miss baseball. Again, winning 2 over the weekend, if Ole Miss can pull that off, you are firmly in the national seed discussion. I think Ole Miss is 26-7 as it sits right now on Friday before the first Tennessee game. If Ole Miss makes it to 30 before they make it to 10 losses, Ole Miss will be a national seed likely when this is all said and done, because you still have South Carolina, who's at the bottom of the conference, Auburn, who's okay but not great. Oklahoma, again, okay but not great. A lot of games. In the Mississippi State game, that's going to be tricky because much like Tennessee against Florida, until they win in the Swamp, you can't assume they're going to. Until Ole Miss takes 2 in Duty Noble Field, you can't really assume that they're going to do that as well. This baseball team has turned out to be a lot better than anybody expected. And if they tell you they're as good as they thought, they're lying to you. And I'm looking forward to see exactly how they end up. The games against Tennessee going to be heck of litmus tests because it's probably the hardest series left on the schedule. You do have Vanderbilt, but Vanderbilt's not Tennessee. Tennessee's the defending national champions. And Liam Dole and Andrew Fisher are coming back to Oxford. Andrew Fisher famously transferred to Tennessee and then went on a recruiting binge to get other Ole Miss players to follow him. Honest to goodness truth. Both of those guys are probably going to have a rough evening, and it might be a little bit hostile whenever they come into Swayze Field to play the games. So this has been my last show until my surgery. I hope, genuinely hope that everybody that watches the show, every everydayers, every loomer, all of you, this show makes your day a little bit brighter. Following Ole Miss sports a little bit more fun. And if you can do that, if we can do that, this thing will come back better than ever. What you can do, and I ask you, I beg of you, please watch every video that gets put up on the channel while I'm out. Please comment, please like, please subscribe if you have not. If you can do that for me, this will be all right. I'm anticipating a pretty precipitous dip in numbers while I'm out. Not because I'm good, just because of continuity. And we're going to have to likely start over a little bit whenever I come back. But that's fine as well. I enjoy doing this. I enjoy the build. I enjoy laser focusing on issues and getting better and better and better to try to improve that view count every single day. So watch every show on the channel. Evangelize to your friends. Get other people involved in the Locked On Ole Miss channel for what's going on. And we're going to build a big community. We're going to plan some changes in the fall using our community webpage on the YouTube site as well. We will figure out how to handle that. I hope everybody has had a great time these past 3 years. And we're going to have a little bit of a break. Lane Kiffin on the front calling a little bit of a timeout. But when I come back, it's going to be real. And listen, because it's so real and because of everything I've gone on, I've rubbed people the wrong way. And I will continue to rub people the wrong way. I'm not apologizing for that. But it is just my single-minded focus and me not allowing other people to determine what I do unless I trust them to do it. And that makes enemies all the time, every single time. But the benefit is I don't care. So we'll see exactly how that goes. Anyway, thank you so much for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every single day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every single day. Your support means the world to us. And thank you for making Locked On Ole Miss your show of first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On Ole Miss or Locked On NFL Draft with Damian Parson and Keith Sanchez. As your favorite collegiate players get ready for the next level. Get the latest draft rankings, rumors, and news every single day. Find Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Hotty toddy, everybody. And remember, analytics is just the old English word that means bad football. We'll see you later.